Do you have problems? Would you like to get rid of those problems? Maybe you want to live a problem-free life. Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're going to be talking about are problems permanent? This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
Now, have you ever, I mean, over the course of your life, had a problem?
Like a few, I think. Yeah,
Once or
here and
twice,
there.
I think. Yeah.
Only a couple though. They're
Yeah.
no big deal.
I can literally like count on, these two fingers the number of days that I haven't had a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always something that comes up. I was curious when you this title because you came up with it. I was curious if you meant are problems like in the sense of permanent, in the sense that problems are always with us, just generally like problems, or if you meant are there certain problems that are permanent, they never go away.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's why I phrased it like that, because it could be both ways and we can investigate both ways to make it a fuller episode,
Nice,
Instead of
nice.
just
I
being
like
like,
that.
are problems permanent? Yes. Okay, thanks for watching today. We'll catch you next
Absolutely.
week. Yeah, it'll give us a little bit more territory to work with.
Well, it's funny though. It's like I sometimes I do wonder why we all seem to imagine this mythical place that we'll get to where we have no problems. I almost it's like it's very funny that we even think that that's a place that we'll get to or a possibility. I mean, I guess like
Happily ever after.
right,
Happily
yeah,
ever after.
and
Hmm.
stupid movies and things, right?
Yeah,
The
every
old
every
fairy tales
child's
used to
book
end
was happily
horribly.
ever after. Yeah.
You ever read the old ones? They're crazy. And then we came
Hmm.
and like made them all pretty, and then it's everybody's got this messed up model in their heads. Well,
Yeah.
it's I guess it depends on how you define problems too. I guess that's the other issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was thinking about this, are problems permanent? I came up with yes and no. So,
Yeah.
like, are problems permanent? Absolutely 100% yes. You will have problems permanently. Until you're dead or gone, you're going to have problems. I remember like maybe one day in my life when like I had like a problem-free existence, but it didn't last, you know? Because
Short lived.
as soon yeah, I mean if it's not one thing, it's 12 others. Like as
Yeah.
soon you will never have a problem-free existence. Uh but on the other hand, are problems permanent? And each individual problem, no.
Well, and maybe too, it's also how you sort of interpret or your perspective on problems too, because some problems I know in my life were much worse than others, and some, I mean, depending on how you look at it, may or may not really be considered problems. Like, we're always going to run into challenges, right? But not necessarily all of them may be problematic. If I know like that I want to do the thing that I'm doing and I expect some sort of resistance or I expect some obstacles and I read those obstacles like as a challenge, maybe it's not a big deal, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and
Possibility.
I mean it does come down to how you think about it. And really like most of the time when you have a problem in life, it's just because you're not accepting life how it is right now.
Yeah,
Life
totally.
life is just going to be how it's going to be, but we have these problems because we're like, no, it should be different. This is wrong. It's not supposed to be like this. And then we have problems.
I will say there was a huge difference between the problems like I experienced when I was when I felt like a victim or I felt like I was blaming other things, and stuff and depressed, right? Those problems were way worse than like now. Like now I don't feel problems like that bad. Like yes, I do have problems, everybody does all the time. But I feel like they're much easier to deal with and address. And when you address them on a regular basis, it's like you kind of keep the momentum going, you know, of
Hmm.
dealing with problems.
Isn't that the crazy thing? It's like you become more skillful in dealing with problems because they still suck just as much. But it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I now know for a fact I'll get through this. I know it's still going to suck, but I know for a fact I'll get through this. I know it's going to, hurt for a while, and I just need to keep chipping away at it, and eventually it won't be as bad. But it definitely doesn't make it any easier.
No. The worst part is though, it's like how we so much of it too, so much of how we experience them and how hard they are comes down to too, like how we respond to them. Like mentally, you know, how much we work ourselves up, whether we get like anxious, stressed, how whether we get angry, all of that plays into also how bad the problems are, I think. And it's like, so I think there's a lot of things you can do that make them easier to deal with, or your perspective on them better, maybe.
Mm, yeah. So what might those things be to make your perspective on problems better?
Oh, it's tough, huh?
Well,
I mean,
I think
oh,
for for me, a lot of it comes down to recognizing that I'm seeing it as a problem, and then
yeah,
recognizing what the reality of the situation is, and then being like, okay, because it's all of my problems have come down to me arguing with reality, and who's going to win? Every time reality wins.
I've never won yet. Yeah, I keep
Yeah,
hoping I will one day, but it just doesn't
I
happen.
know. I know. I still to this day, all the time, I'm like, no, you like, I keep fighting against these things, and I'm just like, why? What for?
Let me ask you, do you make a distinction between like, do you consider every challenge you run into a problem, or do you make a distinction between things?
I think, well, uh, I don't know. I don't really, because challenges like opportunities and stuff, they're still a problem sometimes. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you can make, it's just like I chose this problem. Like this is my own shitty diaper that I chose, as opposed to this is the one that somebody else put on me. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where for me it's gotten a little easier because I think those ones that like I've chosen at least like I feel like have gotten a little easier because like I feel like I'm in a sense lucky to at least have them to have those choices. That
Hmm.
helps. That kind of perspective has helped a lot. Feeling like lucky or like um thankful or grateful that I can even have those choices.
Hmm. That is a good one. Gratitude is definitely helpful. That because it's there was a saying somewhere where it's like, don't wish you don't have any problems. Wish you had the either courage or strength or wisdom or whatever it is to get through your problems.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah, that is a good one. Hmm.
But then there's other ones that are still a pain in the ass too, that are really hard. And that feel
Hmm.
I think it is easier with ones that like when you've made the choice to like say like, things you choose to do, it can be easier to see them in a way like that than ones that feel like they're brought from the outside on. And like so what I'm thinking of is like, like say like personal relationships or something, right? Where something happens because of some conflict or friction or something between you and another person. That can be hard because I feel like it has more of a sense of like you didn't you chose the person obviously, but you didn't choose like whatever this problem is, right? It just kind of happens.
Hmm.
Whereas other ones that you choose, it's easier to kind of see it as like, my choice. So if I really want the
Yeah.
thing, I got it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, no matter where it comes from, it still comes down to determining what's within your control. And, I can talk as much as I can talk about making it seem like I know what I'm talking about. But when this stuff happens to me, I'm like, why? What is God? Ah, but it's like it does come down because it's like the serenity prayer. It's like I actually heard that came about, I think during World War I or World War II, when they saw the world going to hell in a handbasket, and they're just like, you know what? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And like, it comes down to that because it's like there are a lot of so like I look at that often because there's so much in what is it? I think in the Proverbs in the Bible, it talks about wisdom, how that's like more valuable than gold, than silver, than rubies,
Yeah.
than any of that stuff. Wisdom. And it's like in that serenity prayer, it says, grant me the wisdom to know the difference between the things that I can change and the things that I cannot change. And so we all have these problems. And I would bet, I at least know from looking at me, oftentimes I'm trying to change things that I cannot change. And that causes me a lot of headache and a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And these problems hang around for a lot longer because I'm fighting these things that I cannot change, like the situation, other people, things that may have happened in the past, whatever it is, as opposed to actually having the courage to address the things that I can change, like my own viewpoints, the ways that I think about things, the ways that I relate to these things, those type of things.
Yeah, who you interact with, your choices about where you're going, you say whatever. It's funny, the more I think about it, the more I think he really hit the nail on the head with the dichotomy of control. Because it really is like, I mean, it
Yeah.
comes up in everything too. Like it's not just it comes up in the Bible, like I said, it comes up in pretty much everywhere. But yeah, it is important. I think you're right. Like more often than not, the ones that are like the worst that we experience problems is trying to change things that we have no control over anyway, or letting ourselves getting worked up like we as if we should have control over those things when we don't. Like blaming ourselves, like if I don't know, like here's an example right now, like blaming ourselves, like if we're not, when I'm applying a job, if I don't get a call back or something, because like I have no control over that, over the algorithm they're using. I don't have any control over, like, so you just kind of have to keep going. And it's like, it is hard, but it's so much easier to just kind of like get angry, I think, than to actually look at like, what can I do to make it better for me?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like you can either be like, didn't this sucks, or you can be like, hey, I'm one rejection closer to a yes,
Yeah.
and that's up to you,
Yeah. Just
definitely.
keep moving
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. I mean, the major problem that I struggle with on a daily basis is trying to solve all of my life's problems today.
Yeah.
Like these problems that don't even exist. Things that don't
Yeah.
even exist. I'm just imagining these things will be problems in the future, and I'm trying to solve them today, which doesn't make sense because I can't do that. And literally every day, it's just a constant struggle of me trying to solve my future problems and just remembering that, hey, I only have to live through today. That's it.
Can't solve tomorrow's problems now. Doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
It's funny
Mm-mm.
too, like why I don't even know why we even it's such a weird thing that we do that too, like worrying about like it's one thing, planning's different. Like planning is one thing, like trying to have an idea of where you want to go, an idea of how you want to get there, and like, having an idea of like securing things for the future, that's different. But trying to solve future problems, which we all do, that we don't even know, we're just imagining things. And it's always way worse in our imagination than in reality too, 9 times out of 10, because it's imagined, so you can't actually deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
is, it's a mess. Why would we do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Mark Twain or somebody like that said, I've endured a great many uh sufferings or something like that, most of which never even happened. And it's like
I think it,
yeah.
okay. I was gonna say, I think if you can manage to live like in the present too, in the now, and deal with the challenges you face, I think that you probably could get to a point where like you don't, the problems are mitigated a lot, or your perspective on them is much better. Because I feel like I have days like that where there's certain days where I'm like, yeah, things are good, like I'm doing good, like I made these choices. I can be kind of very positive throughout it, and like, it's things go smoothly. And I don't seem to react as strongly to challenges I encounter or problems I encounter. And then like other days, it's like just like somebody flipped the switch, and like everything's a disaster. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
literally have
like
to catch myself from like going off a cliff.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I heard this story about a guy who was like touted for preaching acceptance and like live and let live type of thing. And then he was flying somewhere for a conference and they lost his luggage. And he just freaking lost it and went off the wall. And somebody's like, "What about acceptance?" And he was like, "I wrote that on a good day."
Yeah, because there's probably like jet lag, hadn't slept, all kind. It's
uh,
that's the funny thing too. It's
but,
like as your stress builds and as those annoyances build, like that's like your energy. I think that's part of it. Like our energy level, our ability to deal with these issues. Like it also depends on like how much stress we have, how much anxiety, how much energy we've left over. And if your energy's spent because you're dealing with all these like little things, you'll blow up.
mhm. And also just having the compassion to like allow yourself to have these moments. We're only human, like
Yeah.
I'm so strict on myself about like trying to be this perfect person. It's like, why? Like, what's the big deal? Like, we're all gonna die in the end.
Yeah. I think it's because we make the mistake, and this might be from, all those movies and stories and stuff, but we make the mistake that other people are perfect because all we
Hmm.
see is a very carefully curated
Yeah,
little
yeah. It's
snippet of
like
their life.
Elon Musk must be perfect because he's the richest man in the universe.
Yeah,
Mark
yeah, right.
Zuckerberg must be perfect because he created Facebook. Justin Bieber must be perfect because he wrote some songs. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, they just did one thing really well and the rest of their life is a mess.
No, that's exactly it though. But we imagine, right, that they're perfect, so we expect like I think that's part of it. Or we and I think it's also because we all secretly like expect ourselves to be unique and different, from
Wait,
everyone
say that
else.
again. I didn't hear it.
Like we all kind of like expect ourselves like to be different or unique, from everyone else and not have
Yeah.
the same flaws, you know what I mean? But like in reality we
Hmm.
kind of do. So
Yeah, in reality, we're all the same flawed human model.
yeah,
Hmm.
very flawed model.
Yeah, sure. Jeez,
I think we
whoever
definitely make it
designed this.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah, so oh, here's another reason why. Because like a lot
Okay.
of people, the reason why I should define another reason why what? Another reason why I was like, are problems permanent? Because a lot of people make permanent solutions for temporary problems, and that can lead to issues.
What do you mean?
Well, probably the worst permanent solution to a temporary problem is suicide.
Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
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 So like growing up, there were a lot of people in our neighborhood who like commit
Yeah.
suicide, and I mean, I think with COVID, it's something that's a lot more people are doing it, and maybe it's justified, maybe it's not. Who knows? But it's a very permanent solution to maybe not so much of a permanent problem.
Yeah, it's
And
absolutely permanent. You can't, it's a
yeah,
solution that ends all, or it's a decision that ends all other possibilities.
yeah,
I see what you mean. Okay.
or
Yeah.
or even like ending friendships or relationships based on a dispute. Like I remember when I was younger, anytime I would I would never have like arguments in relationships, and then as soon as we'd have the first argument, it would be like over. And
Done.
I was just like, what? Hang on. This doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Because how could you actually, like, yeah, that's true, right? How could you actually plan to honestly spend time with somebody that long if you're not going to have any issues, right? I think it's how you
Mm-hmm.
respond after an argument or something, how you handle it. That's what really matters, not the argument
Mm.
itself. Because it always
Yeah.
happens, right? Things happen.
Mm. Oh
I
yeah.
like that's a good one. I think that is important. How trying to find these kind of like final solutions to problems. Because you're right. I think it can make us very quick to act and to make choices that we might regret later because, we cut people out of our lives or we very quickly, say change big things about our lives or something because we're like, we're done with that. But instead of actually looking at how can I fix this or what about it is bothering me, and we're not looking at like actual solutions. That's more of like a running
Mm-hmm.
away, right? From
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, kind of. I sometimes when you were just saying that, I thought about how I sometimes make my own problems. Like when things are going just swimmingly and like it's going like so smoothly that, I guess I get bored or something. I just make problems for myself. I'll just like throw a wrench in the works and just mess stuff up and be like, "Oh, great. I knew this was gonna happen." Blah.
That's funny. I wonder too, like it's like because I mean I think we all do that too, and it's like I wonder if it's like because we expect something to go wrong, so we wanna like do it now and catch it, or like I don't know,
Mhm.
don't believe that we deserve to not have like issues all the time.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Uh, hmm.
So I would say no problem is permanent, but there are problems are permanent. Yeah, definitely.
Are there any
And I think
problems that are permanent?
I don't know. I mean,
Um,
I
there
don't
could
think
only be
so.
like permanent in as much as it's as long as your life is.
Yeah. So
I'm sure some people will carry resentments to their grave with them, and they'll have like this permanent problem,
oh, but
like
that's like
oh,
not
this
dealing
family
with it though.
member. Ah,
Yeah, that's
let's
not
see.
finding a way to deal with it though, and that's not finding a way to like resolve it for yourself. However you resolve it, right? I mean,
Hmm.
yeah,
But even that is not permanent. It only lasts as long as the person lasts. So what?
yeah, right.
Problems are not permanent. They're only about 100 years old, maximum.
Max.
Maximum. What about global warming and plastics in the oceans? Even
Nah,
that's
because
not
sometimes,
permanent.
yeah, Because eventually something will happen. Either like the sixth great extinction will happen, and things Mother
Dude,
Nature
yeah,
will reset.
humans will go extinct, and then the whole concept of problems will be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
Uh,
God, that's funny. Yeah, I don't
that
know
is
if that's
cool. That is cool. There's no permanent problems.
no, no. There really, I mean, there can't be, right? Because problems are, I think, more situational too. They're defined by, some set of circumstances and stuff. And if you look at it objectively, I don't know. It's tough. We definitely always have problems, I guess. I think you can
Uh-huh.
move far beyond your problems, but I think it really is about your mental state, your mindset, and like how you look at things. I really think that is like the way to get not free of them, because you'll never be free of like challenges, difficulties. But I think like just how you look at them and how you interpret them is what matters. Because it's all the
Yeah,
meaning we put into things. Like it's all it
and
is.
maybe even choosing what problems you actually want to have. Because like instead of trying to get rid of all of them, recognizing that you're always going to have problems. I've actually heard some like older people say this, that they're like, these are my problems that I've chosen because I know that if I get rid of them, something else will take its place and I may not want it as much, which makes a lot of sense. Because there was this story, I think some guy was heard the Buddha was coming to speak, and so he went and he got an audience with the Buddha, and he said, Buddha, I've got this wife and she's great. She cooks me food. We have a great loving relationship, but sometimes she nags me, and sometimes she's loud when I'm sleeping and all this stuff. And we have these kids, and these kids are great. I love these kids, but like, sometimes they won't do what I say, and sometimes they're just bothersome. And I have this farm, and most years it's doing really well, but some years it doesn't produce enough, and some years, and so he asked the Buddha, he's like, can you help me? Can you help solve my problems? And the Buddha said no. And the guy's like, I thought you were an enlightened being. Why are you saying no? And the Buddha's like, listen, I can't help you have a problem-free life. I can just help prevent you from having the 83rd problem or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, the 83rd problem, what's that? And he's like, it's the belief that you can live a problem-free life. Yeah. So
Which is true though.
I'm,
But I
dude,
think
I'm
that's
so
I
guilty.
think though, I think personally, I think too, once I think if you're living intentionally and you're directing your life, the problems are definitely not as bad. It's way easier to look at them in a positive light than if you're not. At least from personal experience, that's my experience. It's like whenever
Mm.
like I felt like I wasn't, making choices that I was in control of or like directing my life, things seemed way worse. And once I was, things seemed way better.
When you just said that, it reminded me of this Les Brown quote where he said, "If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will
Yeah.
be easy." And I think he's probably talking about like addressing those problems and taking on challenges and opportunities and different things like that. Because if you do the hard stuff and start conquering hard problems, your life will be easy. But if you're avoiding everything and trying to take the easy route,
Yeah.
your life's going to be hard.
Well, I think too, it's how we the meaning we give them, right? How you can flip things. Like I think you can look at your problems as like this is a chance to grow, this is a chance to learn something new. This is like an opportunity that I have because I made choices that put me in this situation, whatever. You can paint them positively or you can paint them really negatively. And it's really just depends on how you choose to look at it. I think again it comes back to like that power we have to choose how we respond to the world and how we interpret the world is really, I think, what it comes down to. You know, if we really are conscious and make the effort, we can make paint them mostly in a decent light and still have challenges and problems, but they're not nearly as difficult to address.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. I think we're
Okay.
good.
Well, there
Hopefully
we
that
go.
solves
We've
the
solved
problem.
all of your problems. You're problem free for the next 13 minutes. And then after that, you're
Yeah.
on your own.
Good
uh,
luck.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Existential Stoic Podcast. Check us out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. This is, again, Existential
Something.
Stoic Podcast.
There's a
I'm
problem.
Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.